Mira sat in the pod-shaped desk, her human frame dwarfed by furniture, designed for species averaging 8 ft. Tall, watching instructor Vesh's 4 blade-like arms gesture at the floating hologram of Earth, the mantis-like. Teacher's triangular head swiveled, her massive compound eyes refracting the blue light from the star system display across her green chitinous exoskeleton. And this Vey clicked her mandibles together in what passed for her species version of a smile is where humans originate, a remarkably ordinary planet with no exceptional resources, no natural defenses, and a single sun. Their claim to fame in the Galactic Federation is she paused, all 4 arms spreading wide in an exaggerated shrug. Well, enthusiasm, I suppose. Laughter rippled through classroom 7B. Zico, the crystalline male whose translucent geometric body shimmered purple-blue in his desk across the ring, let out a resonating chime that sounded like breaking glass. His faceted surface caught the classroom lights, sending prismatic refractions dancing across the curved pale blue walls. Enthusiasm, Zico's voice vibrated through his crystalline structure. That's what you call it when your species is too primitive to do anything actually useful. Then the blob-like amber female beside him rippled with amusement, her 3 eye stalks wobbling on top of her gelatinous form. I heard humans can barely survive their own atmosphere, she gurgled, her translucent body sloshing. As she shifted, they need special suits. Unlike 90% of Federation worlds. Mira's fingers gripped the edge of her oversized desk, her knuckles going white. She stared straight ahead at the floating hologram of her home planet, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her jaw clench through the large transparent viewport behind Instructor Vesh. The distant purple-pink nebula glowed against the black void of space. Now. Vesh's mandibles clicked rapidly, her 4 arms crossing in front of her chitinous thorax. Humans do have one notable trait: they form emotional attachments to other species with remarkable ease. She turned her triangular head toward Mira, compound eyes glittering. Miss Reeves, I understand you've requested permission to bring a companion animal to the Academy for your final xenobiology project presentation. Every student in the circular room turned to stare, 12 pairs of alien eyes, compound stalked, crystalline and stranger, focused on the lone human. Mira stood up slowly, her desk scraping against the metal floor. Yes, instructor, my project examines Earth's domestication practices and interspecies bonding capabilities. Zico's crystalline body chimed with laughter. Oh, this should be hilarious. Let me guess, you're bringing one of those tiny fluffy things that bark, or one of those useless animals that just sleeps all day and knocks things off tables. Actually, Mira said evenly, I'm bringing my childhood companion. He's been with my family since I was 6 years old. Then's gelatinous form jiggled as she gurgled, how adorable, a pet human had as a child. It probably fits in your pocket. Presentation is scheduled for tomorrow, 13th hour, Vesh announced, her blade-like arms gesturing toward the holographic schedule that materialized beside the Earth display. You have clearance to bring your companion to Docking Bay 3. From there you'll escort it to the auditorium. Principal Gorox himself will be attending, along with Ambassador Kelleth from the Galactic Council. Mira's stomach dropped. The ambassador will be here. Indeed, Vesh's Mandibles clicked. Your presentation was selected as an example of human cultural contribution to Federation knowledge. Do try not to embarrass your species. Further, the soft white lighting overhead suddenly shifted to pale yellow, signaling the end of class period. Students began flowing out of their pod desks, Zico's crystalline form chiming. As he moved, Threen oozing across the floor, leaving a faint trail, others skittering, floating, or slithering. Toward the exit, Zico paused beside Mira's desk, his purple-blue facets refracting her reflection into a dozen fractured images. Can't wait to see what pathetic creature you parade in front of the ambassador. Maybe we'll finally have proof that humans shouldn't have been admitted to the academy at all. After he chimed his way out, Mira stood alone in classroom 7B, staring at the hologram of Earth, still rotating slowly in the blue glow. The distant nebula through the viewport seemed to pulse with light. Her calm device buzzed against her wrist. She tapped the screen and her mother's face appeared. Captain Helena Reeves, still in her Earth Defense Fleet uniform, standing in what looked like a ship's cargo bay. Mira, sweetheart, Brutus and I just docked. We're in Bay 3. Is everything okay? You look stressed, Mom, Mira whispered, glancing toward the door. Are you absolutely sure about this? The Galactic Council ambassador is going to be at my presentation. If this goes wrong, when has Brutus ever let us down? Helena's smile was confident, but Mira caught the slight tension around her eyes. He's been the goodest boy for 16 years. He's not going to start causing problems now. Mom, these aliens don't understand. They think Earth animals are all small and harmless. They've been making jokes all semester about how weak humans are, how we need protection, how our companion animals are probably useless. Then tomorrow, Helena interrupted gently, you're going to educate them properly. The calm disconnected. Mira gathered her data pad and headed into the corridor, the narrow metallic hallway stretching before her with its harsh white strip lighting and branching passages. Her footsteps echoed off the dark gray walls as she walked toward the dormitory wing. That night Mira barely slept. She ran through her presentation 17 times on her data pad, adjusting slides, checking facts, trying to anticipate questions. At 400 station time she gave up, showered, and put on her formal academy uniform, the dark blue jacket with Earth's insignia on the shoulder. By 12,200 hours she stood outside docking bay 3, her heart hammering against her ribs. The massive airlock doors were sealed shut, yellow caution markings striping the floor. Around them, through the small reinforced window, she could see her mother's ship and scattered cargo containers in the enormous hangar. Beyond, she pressed her palm to the entry panel. The doors began to grind open with a hydraulic hiss. The docking bay was dim, lit only by flickering work lights that cast harsh shadows across the steel-reinforced walls. Her mother stood beside a large covered transport crate near the ship's cargo ramp, wearing her fleet uniform and a knowing smile. Ready? Helena asked. No, Mira admitted, but let's do it anyway. Helena pulled a remote from her pocket and pressed a button. The magnetic locks on the transport crate disengaged with a series of metallic clanks. The front panel began to lower, forming a ramp. Nothing happened for 3 long seconds. Then a low rumbling growl emanated from inside the crate. Not a bark, not a whine, a sound that vibrated through the steel floor and up. Through Mira's bones, a massive paw emerged first, easily the size of Mira's entire head, equipped with black claws as long as her fingers, then another, then a head that seemed too large to be real, covered in tan and black fur with small rounded ears and a black snout. Brutus stepped fully into the docking bay light. The Tibetan Mastiff stood 4 feet tall at the shoulder and weighed just over 200 lb. His thick double coat made him look even more massive, a mountain of fur and muscle. His dark eyes scanned the bay calmly, and his tail, thick as a human arm, swayed once. "Hey buddy," Mira whispered, walking forward slowly. "Remember me?" Brutus' entire demeanor changed instantly. His massive tail began wagging like a furry battering ram, and he bounded forward with surprising speed for something his size. He pressed his enormous head against Mira's chest, nearly knocking her backward, and let out a pleased rumble. "Good boy," Mira scratched behind his ears, her fingers disappearing into the thick fur. "You ready to go to school?" Helena handed her a simple harness and led. "Remember, he's trained. He'll follow your commands." And Mira, she met her daughter's eyes seriously. "Some of those aliens might panic. That's natural. Don't let it shake you. Just stick to your presentation." Mira clipped the harness onto Brutus, though she knew it was mostly for show. Brutus had been trained by fleet security teams. He didn't need a physical lead to follow commands. She just needed the aliens to see she had control of him. They walked through the docking bay toward the interior corridor. Doors. Brutus's claws clicked against the metal floor with each step, the sound echoing off the walls. As they approached the door, it slid open automatically. The hallway was empty. Classes were in session. Mira led Brutus through the narrow metallic corridor with its harsh white lighting, his massive body taking up most of the walkway. His head swiveled as he observed the unfamiliar environment, but he stayed calm, walking beside her with the patient confidence of a creature that had nothing to prove. They passed 3 intersections before they encountered anyone. A small, 6-legged insectoid creature skittered around the corner, its antenna twitching. It froze when it saw Brutus. Then it screamed, a high-pitched, chittering sound, and reversed direction. So fast it crashed into the wall before disappearing back around the corner. "It's fine," Mira muttered to herself. "It's fine, that's normal." By the time they reached the auditorium entrance, a small crowd had gathered. Word had apparently spread through the station's communication network like wildfire. Students pressed against the corridor walls, trying to get a look at the creature the human had brought. Mira heard whispered conversations in a dozen alien languages. "Is that a predator? Look at the size of those claws. Why would humans domesticate something like that? Do you think it's trained, or is she insane?" The auditorium doors opened, revealing the massive semicircular chamber. Beyond, tiered seating rose up in rings around a central presentation platform, already packed with students and faculty. The curved walls were the same pale blue metal as the classroom, but the scale was enormous. The room could hold over 300 beings. Mira walked down the central aisle, Brutus beside her. The room fell absolutely silent except for the clicking of his claws on the floor. Every eye in the auditorium fixed on the massive dog. She reached the platform and turned to face the crowd. Brutus sat beside her without being told, his tail sweeping the floor once. He was so tall that even sitting his head reached her waist on the elevated faculty platform to the left. Principal Gorak stood slowly, the reptilian administrator's massive 9-foot frame was covered in bronze copper scales that caught the light, his 4 yellow slit pupil eyes arranged vertically on his face, all focused on Brutus. His thick, muscular tail twitched behind him. Miss Reeves, Gorax's voice was a deep rumble, his forked tongue flicking out between words. That is your companion animal? Yes, Principal, this is Brutus. He's a Tibetan Mastiff, a breed originally developed on Earth to guard livestock from large predators. In the front row, Zico's crystalline body was completely still for the first time Mira had ever seen, not even a shimmer. Thne had pulled all 3 of her eye stalks back into her gelatinous body, forming a quivering amber dome. Beside Gorax, Ambassador Kelth stood, her sleek body covered in iridescent black-green feathers that ruffled slightly. Her sharp golden beak opened, and her voice came out surprisingly melodic. Guard livestock from what exactly? Snow leopards primarily, also wolves and bears. A ripple went through the crowd. Multiple students made sounds of distress. Bears, Threne's gurgling voice emerged from somewhere inside her blob form. She said, bears? Aren't those the massive, clawed omnivores that stand upright? Yes, Mira confirmed calmly. She tapped her data pad and a hologram materialized beside her, images of a Tibetan Mastiff standing between a flock of sheep and a snow leopard easily twice the leopard's size. Teeth bared, Brutus's ancestors were bred specifically to confront and drive away apex predators alone without human intervention. Instructor Vesh's 4 blade-like arms were held very still against her chitinous body. Her compound eyes reflected the hologram in thousands of tiny fragments. You domesticated apex predator deterrents and then brought them into your homes. Well, yes, Mira said, but that's not the interesting part. She clicked to the next slide. Footage began playing. Brutus as a puppy wrestling with a 6-year-old Mira, then Brutus sleeping beside her bed, Brutus gently taking food from her hand with the same mouth that could bite through bone. Brutus wearing a ridiculous party hat at a birthday celebration. The interesting part, Mira continued, is that humans didn't just domesticate powerful predator deterrent animals. We formed genuine emotional bonds with them. Brutus here has been protecting my family for 16 years. He saved my mother's life twice during planetary surveys when local fauna attacked. He slept beside my bed every night. Been home, and if I gave him the command right now, he would defend me against anything in this room without hesitation. The silence was deafening. But I won't, Mira added quickly, seeing several students lean toward the exits, because that's the other remarkable thing about Earth's domestication practices. These animals choose to be loyal. We don't control them through fear or pain or psychic manipulation. Brutus stays with me because he wants to. She knelt down beside Brutus and scratched behind his ears again. The massive dog's tail began wagging, and he turned his head to lick her face with a tongue the size of her hand. Brutus. Speak. Brutus let out a single deep bark that resonated through the auditorium like thunder. The sound system wasn't even on. His natural vocalization was just that loud. 3 students in the Back row scrambled out of their seats and fled through the exit doors. Brutus. Down. The Tibetan Mastiff immediately lowered himself to the floor, lying flat. Brutus play dead. He rolled onto his side and went completely still. Closing his eyes, Mira walked away from him, crossing the platform. The bond between humans and earth animals is so strong that they'll follow complex commands, adjust their behavior to match ours, and trust us completely, even when every instinct tells them to do otherwise. She snapped her fingers. Brutus immediately rolled to his feet and trotted over to her, sitting beside her. Again, Ambassador Kelth leaned forward, her golden beak clicking thoughtfully. Her iridescent feathers caught the light as she shifted. Miss Reeves, I've reviewed the psychological profiles of dozens of Federation species. This kind of interspecies loyalty is unprecedented. Most domesticated animals in the galaxy are modified through genetic engineering or neural imprinting. You're telling me this creature chooses loyalty every day? Mira confirmed. Humans have been forming these bonds for over 30,000 years. We've domesticated hundreds of species, from creatures as small as hamsters to animals as large as horses. It's not about control, it's about mutual benefit and genuine affection. She pulled out a small object from her pocket, a simple ball. Brutus's entire body went rigid with focus, his eyes locked on the toy. This, Mira said, is what we call play. She threw the ball across the auditorium platform. Brutus exploded into motion, his massive body covering the distance in seconds. He grabbed the ball in his jaws gently, despite having a bite force that could crush bone, and trotted back, tail wagging furiously. He dropped it at Mira's feet and looked up at her expectantly. Good boy, Mira said enthusiastically, and Brutus's tail wagged even harder. Zico's crystalline form finally shimmered back to life, refracting light across his purple-blue facets. Wait, you're saying that 200B Apex Predator deterrent plays fetch for fun? Mira confirmed, because humans taught his ancestors that play strengthens bonds, that cooperation and joy matter just as much as protection and loyalty. Principal Gorix's 4 yellow eyes blinked in sequence, his bronze-copper scales shifting as he moved. His thick tail stopped twitching. Miss Reeves, I owe you an apology. When you requested permission to bring a companion animal, I assumed he trailed off. You assumed it would be something small and harmless, Mira finished. Something that proved humans are soft and sentimental and weak. The reptilian principal's forked tongue flicked. Yes. And instead you've demonstrated that humans are soft and sentimental and terrifying. You've weaponized compassion. Mira smiled. We prefer to think of it as making friends with everything. It's a survival trait. Actually, humans evolved as persistent hunters and social pack animals. We learned that making alliances, even with other species, was more effective than going it alone. So we befriended wolves and they became dogs. We befriended wild cats and they became cats. We even befriended some of the most dangerous animals on our planet because we recognize that mutual benefit beats mutual destruction. Ambassador Kelth stood, her wings rustling against her back, her talon feet clicked on the platform as she descended toward the presentation area. May I approach your companion? Of course, Ambassador. Brutus, stay gentle. The Avon ambassador walked slowly toward Brutus, her iridescent feathers shimmering. She extended one wing. Slightly, Brutus didn't move, but his eyes tracked her carefully. Kelth reached out with one taloned foot and gently touched the top of Brutus's head. The massive dog's tail began wagging. Slowly. Extraordinary, Kelrith said softly. His heartbeat is steady, no fear response. No aggression, just curiosity and friendliness. That's how he was raised, Mira explained, to assess threats accurately and respond appropriately. Right now you're not a threat, you're just new and interesting. The ambassador pulled her talon back and turned to face the auditorium. Members of the faculty, students, honored guests, I came here today expecting a routine presentation on human cultural practices. What I've witnessed instead is a fundamental shift in how we must understand the species. She gestured toward Brutus with her wing. We've spent 3 cycles debating whether humans belong in the Galactic Federation, whether they're too primitive, too aggressive, too emotional, but we've been asking the wrong questions. We should have been asking what kind of species looks at a 200 lb predator deterrent and sees a best friend. What kind of species builds their civilization on cooperation instead of domination? Zico's crystalline voice resonated quietly. Ambassador, with respect, humans are still one of the weaker species. Physically, no natural armor, no venom, no telepathy. No, Keleth agreed, her golden beak clicking, but they do have something we lack. They have the ability to turn potential enemies into family, and if humans can do that with animals that could kill them, she paused significantly. Imagine what they could do in the Federation. Imagine the bridges they could build between species that have been enemies for centuries. Mira felt her throat tighten. She reached down and rested her hand on Brutus's head. The massive dog leaned against her leg contentedly. Instructor. Vesh's mandibles clicked rapidly, her 4 blade-like arms gesturing expressively. This changes the curriculum, doesn't it? We can't keep teaching that humans are simply enthusiastic contributors. No, Gorax rumbled, his bronze scales catching the light. We need to rewrite the entire cultural studies program. Miss Reeves, I believe your presentation has just become a mandatory viewing for all incoming Federation students. The room erupted in chatter, a cacophony of clicks, chirps, gurgles, chimes, and stranger sounds as students debated amongst themselves. Some looked at Brutus with newfound respect, others still looked terrified, a few looked fascinated. Threne's gelatinous amber form rippled as her eye stalks finally emerged again. Mira, I am sorry for what I said yesterday about humans being weak. It's okay, Mira said. I get it, we look weak. Compared to most of you, we're small. We're fragile, we don't have natural weapons, but we've never needed them. Because we make friends instead of enemies. Even with creatures that could kill you. Thne gurgled, staring at Brutus. Especially with creatures that could kill us, Mira corrected. That's the point. Humans don't see power as something to fear and dominate. We see it as something to befriend and channel toward mutual benefit. Ambassador Kelth returned to the faculty platform, her iridescent feathers rustling. Miss Reeves, the Galactic Council will want to meet with you formally. This presentation has significant implications for human Federation relations. We may need to establish an entirely new diplomatic category for your species. What category? Mira asked. We're thinking universal ambassadors, species, whose natural talent is forming bonds across biological and cultural boundaries. Principal Gorex's 4 eyes blinked. Again, I'll begin drafting the proposal immediately. Miss Reeves, you've earned top marks for this presentation, and detention for causing multiple students to flee and panic. That seems fair, Mira admitted, as the auditorium began to clear, students giving Brutus a wide berth as they filed toward the exits. Zico approached. Slowly, his crystalline body chimed, softly refracting nervous light. Patterns, can I? He paused, his facets shifting colors. Can I pet him? Mira blinked in surprise. Sure, Brutus. Gentle new friend. Zico extended a crystalline appendage that roughly approximated a hand. He touched Brutus's fur carefully, his entire body chiming with wonder. It's so soft. How is something this powerful so soft? Because he doesn't need to be hard, Mira explained. He's powerful enough that he can afford to be gentle. Brutus's tail wagged and he leaned slightly into Zico's touch. The crystalline student let out a sound like wind chimes in a breeze, his species' version of laughter. I was wrong about humans, Zico admitted, his purple-blue facets dimming with something that looked like embarrassment. You're not weak, you're just operating on a completely different evolutionary strategy than the rest of us. Yeah, Mira agreed, scratching Brutus behind the ears. We call it making friends and influencing people. Later that evening, Mira walked Brutus back through the corridors toward Docking Bay 3. The ship had been prepared for his return trip with her mother, though Helena had agreed to extend their stay for a few more days so Mira could spend time with Brutus. As they passed through the narrow metallic hallway, its harsh white lighting flickering slightly, Mira noticed something different. Students were no longer pressing themselves against the walls in terror. Instead, they were watching with open curiosity. A few even waved tentacles, wings, or appendages in greeting. In the docking bay beneath the flickering work lights and harsh shadows, Helena stood beside the ship's cargo ramp with her arms crossed, grinning. So her mother said, how'd it go? The Galactic Council wants to create a new diplomatic category for humans. We're apparently universal ambassadors now. Helena laughed. Well, that's better than enthusiastic primitives. Brutus trotted up the ramp into the ship, his massive tail wagging. He turned around at the top, looked back at Mira, and let out a happy bark that echoed through the enormous hangar. Good boy, Mira called up to him. I'll see you in 3 days, okay? She turned to her mother. Mom, do you think this will actually change anything? I mean, one presentation doesn't rewrite 3 cycles of the Federation thinking we're too weak to matter. Helena put her hand on Mira's shoulder. Sweetheart, you brought a 200 lb apex predator deterrent into a room full of aliens and taught them that humans don't conquer power, we befriend it. You just demonstrated humanity's greatest strength in the most dramatic way possible. Trust me, this will change everything. Back in her dormitory that night, Mira's comm device buzzed constantly. Messages from students she'd never spoken to asking about Earth animals. Questions about dogs, cats, horses, even goldfish. Requests to meet Brutus again. Invitations to present at other academic facilities across the Federation. 1. Message stood out from Instructor Vesh. It contained a single line of text. Miss Reeves, I'm revising my lecture on human civilization. Would you be willing to co-e the next class? I believe I've been getting some things wrong for quite some time. Mira smiled and tapped out a response. I'd be honored. Just one condition. I get to bring visual aids. She attached a photo to the message. It showed 6-year-old Mira asleep in bed, curled up against a puppy Brutus who was already bigger than she was, both of them peaceful and safe. The next morning, Mira walked into classroom 7B to find the circular room rearranged. The pod-shaped desks were still there, but someone had added a holographic display in the center, showing a rotating image of Earth, not as an ordinary planet with no exceptional resources, but labeled as home world species of universal ambassadors. Instructor Vesh stood beside the display, her 4 blade-like arms folded, her compound eyes glittering with something that looked like respect. Before we begin today's lesson, Vesh's mandibles clicked. I want to address something. For 3 cycles I have taught that humans are unremarkable. I was wrong. Any species that can turn wolves into dogs, cats into companions, an apex predator deterrence into best friends is anything but unremarkable. The classroom was packed. Students from other sections had crowded in to hear what the pawn human with the monster had to say. Zico sat in his usual desk, his crystalline form shimmering with attentive focus. Threen's gelatinous amber body rippled as she extended all 3 eye stalks toward Mira. Today, Vesh continued, Miss Reeves will be teaching us about Earth's domestication history and what it reveals about human psychology. And I encourage all of you to set aside your preconceptions, because if yesterday taught me anything, it's that humans operate on entirely different principles than we expected. Mira stood walking to the center of the circular room. The soft white lighting overhead seemed brighter somehow, less clinical. Through the transparent viewport, the distant nebula glowed purple-pink against the black void. So, Mira began, who wants to learn about the time humans befriended literal apex predators for fun? Every appendage, wing, tentacle, and eyedock in the room shot up. And outside in docking bay 3, Brutus slept peacefully in his climate-controlled transport crate, dreaming of his human, his tail thumping softly against the floor every time Mira's face appeared in his dreams. The goodest boy who had just changed the galaxy without even knowing.